Commander Jake Mitchell was drinking his morning coffee when the strangest signal ever recorded came through the communication system of the UES Liberty. The exploration ship had been traveling through the outer rim of the galaxy for 3 months, mapping new star systems and looking for signs of intelligent life. So far, they had found nothing but empty planets and dead moons. The signal made Amy Stone, the communications officer, jump back from her console. She had never heard anything like it. The sound was deep and haunting, like a whale song mixed with the roar of thunder. But more than the sound, it was the images that made everyone on the bridge stop what they were doing. On the main screen appeared a creature that looked like something from Earth's ancient legends. It was a dragon, but not like any dragon from human stories. This one was real, and it was massive. The creature's body stretched nearly 200 feet from nose to tail. Its scales were not the dull green or red that humans imagined dragons to have. Instead, they shimmered with patterns of blue and silver light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The dragon was clawing desperately at something invisible. Its huge talons scraped against what appeared to be empty air, but sparks of energy flew with each strike. The creature's eyes glowed with an inner fire, and its mouth was open in what could only be described as a cry of anguish. Behind the dragon, barely visible in the image, was a nest. Inside the nest were smaller versions of the great creature. These young dragons were much smaller, perhaps 20 feet long each. Their bioluminescent patterns were dim and flickering, like candle flames about to go out. Dr. Lisa Hayes, the ship's xenobiologist, leaned forward in her chair. Her hands moved quickly over her control panel, analyzing every detail of the transmission. "Hey, Jake," she said, her voice filled with wonder and concern. "This is incredible. Look at the energy readings." Jake Mitchell set down his coffee cup and moved to look over her shoulder. The data on her screen showed energy patterns unlike anything in their database. "Hey, what am I looking at, Lisa?" "That dragon isn't clawing at nothing," she explained. "There's some kind of barrier there, an energy field. And look at these readings from the young ones in the nest. Their life signs are dropping fast." Captain Claire Adams entered the bridge at that moment. She was a stern woman in her 50s, who had commanded exploration vessels for over 20 years. She took one look at the main screen and frowned. "What in the world is that?" "We're not sure yet," Jake replied. "But whatever it is, it's in trouble." Amy Stone turned from her console. "Captain, I'm picking up the source of the transmission. It's coming from a moon in the Kepler 442 system. It's about 6 hours away at full speed." The dragon on the screen continued its desperate assault on the invisible barrier. Each strike seemed to weaken the creature. The lights in its scales were growing dimmer, just like those of its young. Ben Carter, the chief engineer, had been studying the energy readings. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke unless he had something important to say. "Captain, I've seen energy patterns like this before. Not exactly the same, but similar." "This looks like containment technology." "Containment?" Claire asked. "Something is keeping that creature away from its young," Ben explained. "And whatever is doing it is artificial. This isn't natural." Double quotes. Dr. Hayes continued her analysis. The more she studied the images, the more concerned she became. "The young ones are dying," she said quietly. "Their energy levels are dropping by the minute. At this rate, they'll be dead within hours." Jake felt something twist in his stomach as he watched the desperate mother dragon. Even though the creature was alien, her behavior was unmistakable. She was a mother trying to save her children, and she was failing. "We have to help," he said. Captain Adams gave him a sharp look. "Help, Jake. We don't know what we're dealing with. This could be some kind of internal conflict between alien species. We could be walking into a war zone. Does it matter?" Jake asked. "Look at her. She's a mother watching her children die, and she can't do anything about it." The bridge fell. Silent, except for the haunting cry of the dragon that continued to come through the speakers. Everyone watched as the great creature threw herself against the barrier again and again. Growing weaker with each attempt, Amy Stone spoke up. "I'm trying to analyze the signal structure. It's definitely a distress call, but it's not directed at anyone specific. She's just calling out to anyone who might hear her." "How do we know it's a she?" Ben asked. Dr. Hayes pointed to her screen. "The behavior patterns. The way she positions herself between the barrier and the nest. The frequency of her vocalizations. Everything indicates maternal protective instincts. Jake looked at the captain. Claire, we took an oath when we joined the exploration fleet. We swore to help any sentient being in distress, regardless of species. That was before we knew there were species that could crush our entire ship with one claw, Claire replied. She's not trying to hurt anyone, Jake said. She's trying to save her children. The dragon on the screen suddenly collapsed. The great creature fell to the ground, her massive body shaking with exhaustion. The lights in her scales flickered weakly. In the nest behind the barrier, the young dragons had stopped moving entirely. Dr. Hayes gasped. We're losing them. The young one's energy signatures are almost gone. Jake looked around the bridge at his crewmates. These people had become his family over the years. They had served together. Amy Stone, barely 25 years old, but already one of the best communications officers in the fleet. Ben Carter, who could fix anything with enough time and spare parts. Dr. Hayes, whose curiosity about life in all its forms had led to dozens of important discoveries. What if it was us? Jake asked quietly. What if Earth was under attack? And our children were trapped somewhere, dying while we watched helplessly. Wouldn't we want someone to at least try to help? Captain Adams stared at the screen for a long moment. The dragon had managed to get back to her feet and was weakly scratching at the barrier again. Her movements were slow and labored now. The captain said finally, how long would it take to get to that moon? At full speed? About 6 hours? And how long do those young ones have? Dr. Hayes checked her readings again. Maybe 4 hours. Possibly less. Amy Stone turned from her console again. Captain, I'm detecting multiple energy sources on that moon. Whatever has trapped that dragon, it's not alone. Hostile? Claire asked. Unknown? But there are definitely artificial structures down there. Big ones. Jake stepped forward. Captain, we can't just leave her there. Even if we can't save the young ones, we can at least try. Isn't that what makes us human? The fact that we'll risk everything to help someone in need. Ben Carter nodded. The kid's right. If there's hostile alien technology out there, Earth needs to know about it. Dr. Hayes was still studying her readings. There's something else. The energy patterns from the dragon herself. They're unlike anything I've ever seen. This isn't just about saving her children. This creature might hold the key to understanding an entirely new form of life. Captain Adams made her decision. Amy, send a message to Earth's command. Tell them we're investigating a first contact situation. Ben, set course for Kepler 4 to see. Maximum speed. Yes, ma'am, they both replied. As the U.S. Liberty changed course and accelerated toward the distant moon, Jake continued to watch the screen. The dragon had noticed something. Her great head turned toward the sky, and for a moment, her eyes seemed to look directly at him through the transmission. In that moment, Jake felt a connection across the vast distance of space. Two intelligent beings, one human and one alien. Both determined to do whatever it took to protect the innocent. The dragon's cry echoed through the bridge one more time, and this time it sounded different. Less like despair and more like hope. The U's Liberty dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What the crew saw on their screens made everyone fall silent. The moon they were heading toward was covered in a web of glowing energy lines that stretched across its entire surface. From space, it looked like someone had wrapped the moon in chains of light. My God, whispered Dr. Hayes. It's not just one barrier. The whole moon is covered in them. Jake Mitchell stared at the tactical display. Red dots marked dozens of locations across the moon's surface. Each dot represented a containment field like the one holding the dragon mother away from her young. How many? He asked. Amy Stone's fingers moved quickly over her console. I'm counting 47 separate containment areas. And Jake, there are life signs in most of them. You mean there are more dragons down there? Not just dragons, Amy? Replied, her voice tight with concern. I'm detecting at least 6 different types of life forms. All of them are trapped. Captain Adams moved to the main tactical station. Ben, What are those large structures orbiting the moon? Ben Carter enhanced the image on the main screen. 3 massive ships came into view. They were unlike anything. In human databases, ships were dark gray and angular, with no smooth curves anywhere on their hulls. They looked more like machines than vessels designed for living beings. Each one is about 3 kilometers long, Ben reported. And Captain, they're drawing energy from the moon's surface. Massive amounts of energy. Dr. Hayes felt her blood turn cold as she understood what they were seeing. They're not just trapping these creatures, they're feeding on them. Jake looked at the energy readings flowing from the moon to the alien ships. The pattern was clear. Now, the barriers weren't just holding the creatures prisoner. They were slowly draining the life force from every living thing on the moon's surface. It's a farm, he said quietly. They're farming these creatures for their life energy. Amy Stone had been trying to intercept communications between the alien ships. I'm picking up transmissions. The language is completely unknown, but I'm getting some basic translations from the computer. They call themselves harvesters. Harvesters, Captain Adams repeated. That tells us everything we need to know about their intentions. On the main screen, they could see the Dragon Mother again. She was weaker now, barely able to stand. The young dragons in the nest behind the barrier had stopped moving completely. Their bioluminescent patterns had faded to almost nothing. Too late for some of them, Dr. Hayes said sadly. But there might still be time to save others. Tony Brooks, the security chief, had been studying the harvester ships through the ship's sensors. He was a former military man who understood threats better than anyone else on the crew. Captain, we need to be very careful here. Those ships are armed with weapons I don't recognize. If they detect us, we could be in serious trouble. Can we avoid detection? Jake asked. Ben Carter was already working on the problem. Maybe the moon has several large asteroid fields nearby. We could hide the Liberty in one of them and use shuttles for reconnaissance. Captain Adams nodded. Do it. Tony, I want you to prepare a small team for a reconnaissance mission. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we make any moves. As the Liberty moved toward the asteroid field, Amy Stone continued to monitor communications from the surface, getting more transmissions from the trapped creatures. Not just the dragon. There are others calling for help. Can you establish communication with any of them? Jake asked. I'm trying with the dragon first. Her signal is the strongest. Amy adjusted her equipment and sent a simple mathematical sequence toward the moon. Prime numbers, then the Fibonacci sequence, then basic geometric patterns. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the dragon's bioluminescent patterns began to change. Instead of the random pulsing they had seen before, the lights on her scales began to flash in the same mathematical sequences Amy had sent. She's responding, Amy said excitedly. She understands that we're trying to communicate. Dr. Hayes leaned forward. Try sending an image, something simple. Amy sent a basic image of the Liberty approaching the moon. The dragon's response was immediate. Her scales flashed in a complex pattern, and then she turned toward the sky. Even weakened as she was, her message was clear. She knew they were coming. She's waiting for us, Jake said. The Liberty reached the asteroid field and settled into a hiding position behind a large space rock. Tony Brooks prepared his reconnaissance team while Ben Carter worked on modifying a shuttle to avoid harvester. Detection. Got bad news, Ben announced after an hour of work. Those harvester ships are scanning constantly. Any ship that gets close to the moon will be detected immediately. What about a small team in environmental suits? Tony suggested. If we approach from the moon's dark side, we might be able to land undetected. Jake volunteered immediately. I'll go with Tony's team. Absolutely not, Captain Adams replied. You're too valuable as first officer. With respect, Captain, this was my idea. If anyone is going to risk their life down there, it should be me. Dr. Hayes spoke up. I should go too. If we're going to communicate with these creatures, we need someone who understands xenobiology. And I should go to handle communications, Amy added. Captain Adams looked around the bridge at her crew. These people were more than just colleagues to her. They were family. The thought of sending any of them into danger made her stomach clench. But she also knew they were right. Fine. Small team. Tony, Lisa, and Amy. Ben, you'll monitor from here and be ready to extract them if things go wrong. As the team prepared for their mission, Ben Carter made a disturbing discovery. Captain, I've been analyzing the energy signatures from those harvester ships. I'm detecting similar patterns in our database. What do you mean? Ben's face was grim. We've seen these energy signatures before. Reports from colonies that went silent. 3 systems in the Outer Rim. All of them stopped responding to communications about 2 years ago. The implication hit everyone at the same time. The harvesters had done this before, multiple times. They were systematically moving through the galaxy, harvesting the life energy from entire worlds. How many worlds? Captain Adams asked quietly. At least 3 that we know of. But there could be more, many more. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If they've been doing this for years, and they're this close to human space, ... Earth could be next, Amy finished. Dr. Hayes was studying the biological data from the moon. There's something else. These creatures they're harvesting. Some of them show signs of advanced intelligence. The dragons, especially. Look at the complexity of their communication patterns. On the screen, the dragon mother had managed to stand again. She was looking directly up at the sky, her scales flashing in what was clearly a deliberate pattern. Amy worked quickly to translate the message. She's not just calling for help anymore, Amy said. She's warning us. She's telling us that the harvesters have done this to her people before, many times. Jake realized the full scope of what they were facing. This wasn't just about saving one dragon family. The harvesters were wiping out entire species, and they had been doing it for years. The dragon mother wasn't just trying to save her young. She was possibly one of the last of her kind. We have to stop them, he said. Tony Brooks checked his equipment one more time. The reconnaissance mission is ready, Captain. We can launch in 10 minutes. Captain Adams looked at the moon on the main screen. Somewhere down there, dozens of intelligent creatures were being slowly killed for their life energy. And somewhere out there in space, the harvesters were planning their next target. Launch when ready, she ordered. Be careful down there. We might be the only hope these creatures have. As the modified shuttle prepared to leave the Liberty, the Dragon Mother sent one more message. This time, her bioluminescent pattern spelled out something that Amy translated immediately. Says thank you, Amy reported. She knows we're coming to help. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. They were about to face an enemy that had destroyed worlds, and they were doing it to save creatures they had never met before. But looking at the desperate Dragon Mother on the screen, he knew there was no other choice. The shuttle launched into the darkness, caring for humans toward a moon full of dying creatures and an enemy that had never encountered human determination before. The shuttle touched down on the dark side of the moon with barely a whisper. Jake Mitchell, Tony Brooks, Dr. Lisa Hayes, and Amy Stone stepped out onto the rocky surface in their environmental suits. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, making each step feel like a small bounce. Stay close, and keep communications to a minimum, Tony whispered through their suit radios. We don't know how sensitive harvester detection equipment is. They moved carefully across the uneven terrain. Toward the nearest containment site, the moon's landscape was harsh and barren, covered in dark rocks and deep craters. But as they got closer to their target, they began to see something that made their hearts sink. The containment fields weren't just barriers. They were sophisticated. Energy drains that slowly pulled the life force from anything trapped inside. The area around each field was littered with the remains of creatures that had died in previous harvests. This is a graveyard, Lisa whispered, kneeling beside what looked like the skeleton of a large bird-like creature. They've been doing this here for a long time. Amy was monitoring her communication equipment when she detected something unexpected. Jake, I'm picking up a signal. It's coming from inside one of the containment fields. They crept closer to investigate. Inside a shimmering energy barrier, they found a creature unlike anything they had ever seen. It was roughly humanoid in shape, but covered in silver fur that sparkled like starlight. The creature was barely alive, its breathing shallow and weak. It's trying to communicate, Amy said, adjusting her equipment. The signal is very faint. Through her translation device, they heard a weak voice. Please, help, my people. Dying, Jake felt his heart break. This creature was begging for help in its final moments. Can we break the barrier? Tony examined the energy field with his scanner, not without the right equipment, and even if we could, moving too fast might. Alert the harvesters. They had to make a terrible choice. They could try to help this one creature and risk exposing their mission, or they could leave it to die while they gathered information that might save others. Jake closed his eyes and made the hardest decision of his life. We keep moving, he said quietly. But we remember this. We remember all of them. They continued across the moon's surface, documenting the horror they found. Dozens of containment fields held different species in various stages of dying. Some creatures were already dead. Others were fighting to stay alive with their last breath. As they approached the area where the Dragon Mother was trapped, they began to understand the full scope of the harvester operation. The creatures weren't just random captures. They were specifically chosen. Look at this, Lisa said, studying her readings. Every species here has high bioenergy output. The harvesters are targeting the most energy-rich life forms in the galaxy. Amy was monitoring harvester communications when she detected something alarming. We're talking about Earth, she said. I can't understand most of it, but they've definitely identified our solar system. Jake felt ice in his veins. Are they planning to attack Earth? I think so. They're calling it a rich energy source, with billions of units. I think they mean billions of humans. Tony checked his weapon, even though he knew it would be useless against the massive harvester ships. We need to get this information back to Earth immediately. But as they approached the Dragon Mother's location, they discovered something that changed everything. The great creature was not alone. Hidden in the rocks around her containment field were 3 other adult dragons. They were weak and badly injured, but they were alive. They're planning something, Lisa observed. Look at their positioning. They're surrounding the containment field. Amy established communication with the Dragon Mother through a translation device. They heard a voice that was ancient and filled with pain. Small ones, you came. I am Zephora, last of the Elder Dragons. We're here to help, Jake replied through Amy's equipment, but we need to understand what we're facing. Zephra's response revealed the terrible truth. Harvesters, droid. Our worlds, killed our people. We are all that remain. But you, you, are new. They have not taken your world yet. Tell us about the harvesters, Jake said. How do we fight them? Cannot fight, too powerful, but can disrupt. Bioenergy can overload their systems. But need help. Need barriers down first. Lisa was analyzing the energy readings from the dragons. Jake, she's right. Dragon bioenergy operates on a different frequency than harvester technology. We could coordinate an attack, Amy translated as Zephra continued. Your people, small but clever. Tools, Harvesters do not expect new tactics. Together, we might succeed. Tony was studying the harvester patrol patterns when he noticed something important. The harvesters have a weakness. They're overconfident. They're not expecting any real resistance. Jake looked at the 3 hidden dragons, then at Zephra trapped. Behind the barrier? Are you proposing an alliance? Dragons and humans working together? Must work together, or all die. Harvesters will not stop. Will consume all life in galaxy, But together, might have chance. Dr. Hayes was examining the containment technology when she made a crucial discovery. The barriers aren't just energy fields. They're connected to the harvester ships. If we could disrupt the connection, the dragons could break free, Jake finished. And their bioenergy could overload the harvester systems. Amy received another message from Zephora. Young ones, still alive, but not much time. We act, must act soon. Jake looked at his team. They had come to the moon to help save some trapped creatures. Now, they were being asked to join an alliance that could determine the fate of the entire galaxy. What do you need from us? He asked Zephora. Human technology, adaptable, at, can modify to disrupt barriers. Dragons provide power. Humans provide cleverness, together break free. Tony was monitoring harvester movements when he noticed something alarming. We've got company. A patrol ship is heading this way. They quickly hid among the rocks as a sleek harvester vessel passed overhead. The ship was scanning constantly, its sensors sweeping across the moon's surface. They're looking for something, Amy whispered. Maybe they detected our shuttle. But the harvester's ship moved on without finding them. As it disappeared over the horizon, Zephora sent another message. Harvesters growing suspicious. Their species tried to resist, failed. But humans different, humans adapt. Humans survive, Will you join us? Jake looked at the dying young dragons in the containment field. He thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who had no idea that mechanical creatures were planning to harvest their life energy. He thought about all the species that had already been destroyed by the harvesters. Yes, he said, we'll help you. The three hidden dragons moved closer, their scales beginning to glow with renewed energy. Even in their weakened state, they were magnificent creatures. Each one was over 100 feet long, with scales that shimmered like precious metals. Amy translated as one of them spoke. I am Thane. This is Kira and Vex. We have waited long for allies. Together we will make the harvesters pay for what they have done. Dr. Hayes was already working on the technical aspects of their alliance. I need to understand dragon bioenergy better. If we're going to coordinate an attack, we need to know exactly how your abilities work. We'll teach, Zephyro replied. But first, must save young ones. They are future of our people. Without them, dragons die forever. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders again. They were no longer just trying to save one dragon family. They were trying to save an entire species and possibly prevent the destruction of Earth. We'll need a plan, he said. Something the harvesters won't expect. Tony was studying the harvester ship movements. They're following a pattern. Every 6 hours, they rotate their patrol schedules. That gives us a window. How long? Asked. Maybe 20 minutes when the patrols are changing. But we'd have to move fast. Amy received another message from Zephora. Harvesters do not understand cooperation. They consume. Do not create. Do not work together. This is their weakness. This is how we win. As the team prepared to return to their shuttle, Jake looked up at the 3 harvester ships orbiting the moon. Soon, those ships would face something they had never encountered before. The combined determination of humans and dragons working together, the alliance had been formed. Now they had to make it work. The UES Liberty buzzed with activity as the crew prepared for the most dangerous mission in human history. Ben Carter had been working for 6 straight hours, modifying human technology to work with dragon bioenergy. His engineering bay looked like a storm had hit it, with cables and circuit boards scattered everywhere. This is completely crazy, Ben muttered, as he connected the final power coupling. We're trying to merge human electronics with alien biology. Shouldn't work, but it was working. The device he had built looked like a cross between a human energy weapon and something from a science fiction movie. When connected to a dragon's bioenergy field, it could disrupt harvester containment barriers from a distance. Jake. Mitchell stood in the shuttle bay with the 3 dragons who had made it to the Liberty. Thane, Kira, and Vex were magnificent, even in their weakened state. Their scales glowed softly in the artificial light, and their eyes held an intelligence that was both ancient and fierce. The plan is simple, Jake said, addressing both his human crew and their dragon allies. We hit the harvester ships during their patrol change. Rachel Green will create a distraction on the far side of the moon, while the harvesters are focused. On her, we'll strike the main containment facility. Rachel Green, the Liberty's best pilot, grinned confidently. Don't worry about me. I can outfly anything those metal monsters can throw at me. Dr. Hayes had spent hours learning about dragon physiology from their new allies. The dragons will channel their bioenergy through Ben's devices to overload the harvester power grid. But they'll be vulnerable while they're doing it. We have to protect them. Tony Brooks checked his modified weapons one more time. The security team had worked with Ben to create energy shields that could deflect Harvester attacks. They were untested, but they were the best defense they had. Amy Stone was monitoring Harvester communications. The patrol change happens in 30 minutes. After that, we'll have maybe 20 minutes before they realize what's happening. Captain Adams looked around at her crew. I want everyone to understand what we're doing here. We're not just trying to save those young dragons. If we fail, the Harvesters will continue destroying worlds across the galaxy. Earth will be next. Zephyr's voice came through the communication system. She was still trapped on the moon's surface. But her determination had only grown stronger. Small, brave ones, we have waited centuries for allies like you. Today we fight not just for my young, but for all life in the galaxy. The assault began exactly on schedule. Rachel Green took her, fighter to the far side of the moon, and began attacking Harvester sensor stations. Her ship danced between energy blasts like a leaf in the wind, always staying just out of reach. They're taking the bait, she reported over the radio. 2 patrol ships are coming after me. That left only 1 patrol ship near the main containment facility. Jake's assault team launched from the Liberty in 2 shuttles. The first shuttle carried Jake, Tony, and half the security team. The second carried Dr. Hayes, Amy, and the 3 dragons. As they approached the moon's surface, Ben Carter's voice crackled over the radio from the Liberty. Remember, you only have 1 shot at this. Once the dragons start channeling bioenergy, every Harvester in the system will know where you are. The shuttles landed near the containment facility just as the remaining Harvester patrol ship moved to help hunt Rachel Green. Jake's team quickly set up a defensive perimeter while the dragons prepared for their part of the mission. Thane was the first to begin. The great dragon placed his claws on Ben's modified device and began to glow. Energy flowed from his scales into the human technology, creating a brilliant beam of light that struck the nearest containment barrier. The barrier flickered and sparked, but held. More power, Jake called out. We need more power. Kira and Vex joined their bioenergy to Thane's. The combined power of 3 dragons flowing through human technology created something the Harvesters had never seen before: containment. Barriers began to fail one by one. Zephyra was the first to break free. The ancient dragon roared with joy and fury as she finally reached her young. 2 of the small dragons were still alive, barely breathing, but alive. She gathered them close with her great wings, protecting them with her own body. But their success had been noticed. Alarms began sounding from the Harvester ships in orbit. The remaining patrol ship abandoned its hunt for Rachel and turned toward the containment facility. Company coming, Tony warned. Raising his energy shield as the Harvester, the ship began firing at them. The battle that followed was unlike anything humans had ever experienced. Harvester weapons fired beams of energy that could drain the life from any living thing they touched. But Ben's shields worked. Deflecting the death rays and giving the humans a chance to fight back, Dr. Hayes was helping freed creatures escape their containment fields when she made a terrible discovery. Jake, the young dragons are too weak to fly. We need to get them to the Liberty for medical treatment. But the Harvester ship was between them and their shuttles. Worse, the 2 patrol ships hunting Rachel were returning. In minutes, they would be outnumbered 3-1. That's when Zephyra made a decision that changed everything. The ancient dragon rose into the air, her weakened body glowing brighter than anyone had ever seen. She flew directly at the Harvester ship, drawing its fire away from the humans and her young. What is she doing? Amy asked in horror. Thane translated Zephyra's roar. She says the young must survive. The future of our people depends on it. Why? Jake watched in amazement as the Dragon Mother engaged the Harvester ship in single combat. Bioenergy blasts struck the mechanical vessel again and again, causing explosions along its hull. But the ship's weapons were hurting her badly. She couldn't keep fighting much longer. We have to help her, Jake said. Tony was already moving. Security team, focus all fire on that ship. Give the dragon support. Human weapons and dragon bioenergy struck the Harvester vessel from multiple directions. The ship's shields began to fail under the combined assault. But the other two patrol ships were almost back. That's when Ben Carter made the greatest engineering decision of his life. From the Liberty's bridge, he overloaded the ship's main power core and channeled all the energy into a single massive blast. The beam struck the first patrol ship just as it entered the battle, crippling it instantly. "Ben, you magnificent, crazy genius." Rachel laughed over the radio. That was beautiful. But they still had one more harvester ship to deal with, and Zephyra was falling. The Dragon Mother had given everything she had to protect her young. She was unconscious and dropping toward the moon's surface. Kira and Vex flew to catch her, but they were still too weak from their own imprisonment. All three dragons crashed onto the rocky ground near the containment facility. Jake made a split-second decision. "Tony, get everyone to the shuttles. Amy, help Dr. Hayes with the young dragons. I'm going to help Zephora." "Shh, Jake. That's suicide," Tony called out. But Jake was already running toward the fallen dragons. The last harvester ship was firing everything it had, turning the moon's surface into a hellscape of energy blasts. An exploding rock Jake reached Zephora just as she opened her eyes. The ancient dragon looked at him with an expression he would never forget. It was gratitude mixed with something else. Respect. "Thank you, small brave one," she whispered through Amy's translator. "You kept your promise." "We're not done yet," Jake replied. "We're getting you and your young out of here."
Out behind.
Them, the human security team, was fighting a desperate battle against the remaining harvester ship. Their energy shields were failing, and their weapons were running low on power. That's when something unexpected happened. The creatures they had freed from the other containment fields joined the battle. Species from across the galaxy, all weak from their imprisonment, all barely able to stand, came together to fight their captors. A silver-furred humanoid fired bolts of electricity from its hands. A crystalline being created barriers of hardened light to protect the humans. Creatures that looked like living plants entangled the harvester ship with vines of pure energy. The last harvester ship, faced with resistance it had never encountered before, tried to retreat, but Rachel Green was waiting for it. Her fighter struck the ship's engines with a perfectly placed shot, sending it spinning out of control to crash on the moon's surface. The battle was over. They had won. As the survivors gathered around the shuttles, Jake looked at the destruction around them. The moon's surface was scarred and blackened, but they had succeeded. The young dragons were alive, and dozens of other creatures had been freed. Zephora, carried carefully in one of the shuttles, managed to speak one more time. "This is not the end," she said. "This is the beginning. Harvesters will come again, in greater numbers, but now they face something they have never faced before. They face the alliance of free peoples." Jake nodded. The war against the Harvesters was just beginning, but for the first time since this all started, he felt hope. Humans and dragons had fought together and won. Other species had joined them. The galaxy finally had a chance to fight back. As the shuttles lifted off from the moon, carrying their rescued passengers toward the Liberty, Jake looked back at the wreckage of the Harvester facility. They had struck the first blow in what would surely be a long war. 3 weeks after the battle on Kepler 44-C, the UES Liberty looked very different. The ship's cargo bays had been converted into medical facilities for the rescued creatures. The corridors echoed with the sounds of different languages as species from across the galaxy worked together for the first time in centuries. Jake Mitchell stood in the main medical bay, watching Dr. Hayes examine one of Zephyra's young dragons. The small creature was much healthier now, its scales glowing with bright blue and silver patterns. It was playful and curious, often trying to communicate with the human crew through light displays. "She's going to be fine," Dr. Hayes said with a smile. "Both young ones are recovering faster than I expected. Dragon healing abilities are remarkable." The young dragon chirped softly and flashed a pattern of lights that Amy Stone had learned meant "thank you" in dragon language. Amy had become the ship's official translator, able to communicate with most of the rescued species. "She wants to know if she can see the star charts," Amy translated. "The young ones are fascinated by human navigation technology," Jake laughed. Tell her she can visit the bridge any time, only if her mother says it's okay. Zephora had recovered from her injuries, but the ancient dragon spent most of her time in the modified cargo bay that served as her quarters. She was working with Captain Adams and the other rescued species leaders to plan their next moves. Harvesters will not ignore what happened, Zephora said during their daily strategy meeting. They have never faced organized resistance before. They will send more ships, stronger ones. Captain Adams nodded grimly. Our long-range sensors have detected harvester activity in 12 different star systems. They're moving faster now, harvesting worlds at an increased pace. Thane, Kira, and Vex had appointed themselves as the Liberty's protectors. The three dragons took turns patrolling around the ship, using their bioenergy to mask the vessel's energy signature from harvester sensors. We need allies, said Commander Jake. More ships, more species willing to fight. That's when the silver-furred humanoid they had rescued spoke up. Her name was Sella, and she represented the Luminar Collective, a group of energy-based life forms from the Andromeda sector. My people have been hiding from the harvesters for 50 years, Sella said. We have ships, weapons, and knowledge of harvester tactics, but we never had hope of victory until now. A crystalline being named Vertex rolled forward on its geometric base. The crystal mines of Proxima 7 have been monitoring harvester movements for decades. We can provide intelligence and defensive technology. Jake felt a surge of excitement. Are you saying you want to join our alliance? Not just join, Vertex replied, its voice like wind chimes. We want to help you build it. The galaxy needs a united front against the harvesters. Dr. Hayes had been studying the bioenergy interactions between different species. I've made an incredible discovery, she announced. When multiple species combine their unique energy signatures, the effect is exponential. Dragons, Luminors, crystal mines, and humans together could generate enough power to disable entire harvester fleets. Ben Carter had been working on new technology based on what they had learned during the rescue mission. I've designed a new type of ship, something that can carry representatives from all our allied species and channel their combined abilities into weapons and shields. A unity ship, Amy said. Built for cooperation instead of conquest. Captain Adams looked around the room at the representatives of 4 different species, all working together toward a common goal. A month ago, she had commanded a simple exploration vessel. Now she was helping to forge the first galactic alliance in recorded history. We'll need a base of operations, she said. Somewhere the harvesters can't find us while we build our fleet. Zephyrus scales glowed with ancient memories. There's a place, the Sanctuary Nebula. My people used it as a refuge long ago. It is hidden, protected by natural energy fields that mask any ships inside. How many ships can it hide? Jake asked. Thousands. Over the following days, the Liberty became the center of frantic activity. Messages were sent to dozens of star systems calling on any species that had suffered from harvester attacks to join the alliance. The response was overwhelming. The warrior clans of Rigel 7, who had been fighting a losing battle against the harvesters for 10 years, pledged their entire fleet. The plant collective of the Outer Rim offered their bioships, vessels grown from living trees that could repair themselves in battle. Even the normally peaceful meditation masters of Altair agreed to share their mental abilities to coordinate large-scale battles. It's working, Amy said excitedly as she processed the incoming messages. 53 different species have agreed to meet us at the Sanctuary Nebula, but their success had not gone unnoticed. Tony Brooks detected harvester scout ships moving toward their position. Need to leave now, he warned. They're tracking us. The Liberty and its escort of allied ships jumped to faster than light speed just as a massive harvester battle fleet arrived at their previous location. The enemy had brought 30 ships, 10 times more firepower than they had ever assembled before. They're taking us seriously now, Jake observed. The journey to the Sanctuary Nebula took 3 days. When they arrived, Jake was amazed by what he saw. The nebula was a swirling cloud of blue and purple energy that stretched across several light years. Hidden inside were the remnants of an ancient civilization, space stations, and defensive platforms that had been waiting for centuries. My people built these long ago, Zephora explained. Before the harvesters came to our worlds, they were meant to be a gathering place for all peaceful species. As allied ships arrived from across the galaxy, the nebula came alive with activity. Engineers from different species worked together to repair and upgrade the ancient stations. Scientists shared knowledge that had been hidden for generations. Warriors trained together, learning each other's fighting techniques. Dr. Hayes established the first interspecies medical facility. Treating patients from dozens of different worlds, we're not just building an alliance, she told Jake. We're creating a new kind of civilization. Ben Carter worked with engineers from 12 different species to design the Unity ships. The vessels were unlike anything ever built before, combining dragon bioenergy, Luminor light weapons, crystal mind shields, and human adaptability into something greater than the sum of its parts. The first Unity ship will be ready in 2 weeks, Ben reported. We're calling it the EU's Harmony. But their peaceful work was interrupted when long-range sensors detected the largest harvester fleet ever assembled. Over 200 ships were moving toward the Sanctuary Nebula. How did they find us? Captain Adams asked. Vertex provided the answer. They did not find us. They are moving toward human space. Earth is their primary target now. Jake felt his blood turn to ice. How long do we have? Their current speed. They will reach Earth in 6 days. The Alliance faced its first major decision. They could stay hidden in the nebula and continue building their forces. Or they could take their incomplete fleet and try to stop the harvesters before they reached Earth. Zephyra made the choice for all of them. We fight now, the humans risked. Everything to save my young. Now we risk everything to save their world. The call went out across the nebula. Every ship, every species, every warrior who could fight would join the battle for Earth. It would be the largest space battle in galactic history. As the Allied fleet prepared to leave the Sanctuary Nebula, Jake stood on the Liberty's bridge with his friends and allies around him. Amy Stone was coordinating communications between 53 different species. Dr. Hayes was monitoring the health of crews that breathed different atmospheres and ate different foods. Ben Carter was making final adjustments to weapons that combined technologies from across the galaxy. Captain Adams looked at the massive fleet forming around them. A month ago, we were explorers looking for signs of intelligent life. Now we're leading a galactic alliance into the biggest battle in history. Jake smiled as he watched Zephyr's young dragons playing in the ship's corridors, their scales flashing with joy and curiosity. It was worth it, he said. All of it was worth it. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing toward Earth and destiny. Behind them, the Sanctuary Nebula pulsed with the light of new hope. Ahead of them waited the harvesters and the battle that would determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. But for the first time in centuries, the free peoples of the galaxy were united. And that unity would prove to be the most powerful weapon of all.